Hello everyone. So today the topic here we are going to cover in our lecture is extra topics which is related to the static method, static block, final block, super, and these keywords. As we already have an idea how we are proceeding with the same, so I have already prepared this document where I will be proceeding with explanation all those different steps we have so far covered in this. So let's start with our journey related to the some additional topics, which is part of core Java, and that you should have an idea before moving on to the Selenium or the rest issue. The topic here we have is static methods, static block, final keywords, super keywords, and these keywords. Let me just open and check if my voice is audible to you. Just give me one sec. Hmm. Static block, final, yeah, it's working. So the static methods is the first concept that we are going to understand in our today's lecture. So as this diagram suggests, or this document says, the static methods are those methods which have belongs to the class, not with the instance. What does it means? It simply means we are creating an object without calling any reference variables. We directly call those functions. Then only the static methods are being used in the automation perspective. So let's understand more about it, and we will go through it. So let's say you wanted to use some reading of data in Excel, taking a snapshots, driver initiations, weights functions. These all are the things that you're necessarily dealing again and again. So instead of creating all the time reference variables, we are going with the different approach. Means we declare some functions that we are going to use again and again, like a utility screenshot, like weight utility, for example, implicit weight that do you want to implement. So you create some functions, and those functions will act as a static methods, and then we are directly call those using a class. So let's understand with proper examples to differentiate the same. So as we already know, we have maintaining all this YouTube sessions in this was. Let's create a new package which name as lecture number 8. So in this lecture 8 number, let's start with static method first. So let's create a class, means let's create a weight utility class. This is the class I have created against the same. Let's say inside that we will needs to approved or provide a weight. So before that we can add some dependencies for the seleniums can be accessible on that part. Let me just add those dependencies quickly. So dependencies are basically you can say independent kind of a jars that we are include that we need to include. So I've just added some dependencies so the weight functions or weight class can be associated with that part. So just an FYI, so error won't trigger us to us. That's why I'm doing the same thing. So let's focus upon the static class itself only. You can see I have created one class. Let's name it as weight class utility. Inside that, I will creating some functions that I will be using again and again. So instead of creating a reference variable, as you already know that when we deal with the yesterday's lecture with oops and their associated concept, and the topic is class and object, you have understand that in the class, for creating any class is a blueprint for performing any action such as calling the functions, calling the variables. We need some object, means instance needs to be created. So instead of declaring instance all the times, we move with the static method approach. So let's create a function, public void public static void implicit weight test. So this is the function I have created. Let's say I have provided two different methods against the same. First is the WebDriver on which that implicit will work, and similarly it will accept some seconds. Let's say these are the two parameters I have provided with that part. In the Selenium perspective, when we are calling some wait, there is a predefined thing known as driver dot manage dot timeout dot implicit wait, and then duration of the seconds that we need to provide. So this is the thing we are calling for implicit wait. And this is the real-time example when we are dealing with the wait utility class against the same. As you can see, I have create a function which is a static type. So let's say I have create one main method test runner. I have created one main method inside the test runner. So instead of creating the wait utility, I will need to create this, and using obj dot, then only I can access this function driver dot 20. Let's say by this approach I have been calling. So this is the known as class and object approach. But as you can see, this is not a good practice. We need to create again and again for all the references. So we have declared the function as static. So we can directly, irrespective of the object creation, I directly call that function using a class name. So class name dot and then function whatever we want to do. So this is the approach. This is known as static function calling. Without creating any reference variables or instance of the class, we have calling the variables. So this is the real-time uses in our program that we have in automation perspective. So this is the one use of the static method that we have seen. So similarly, we can create few more classes. Let's say Excel reading. So this is the utility I have created. Inside that, let's say we have created public static void read data. So let's say this is the reading of file. Sorry for the disturbance. So this is the data function I have created. Similarly, this is the set data string str. So let's say I will return this data, and we are storing in the form of string. This is the data I have been associated with it. Data is equal to str. Whatever the data has been came here, we can see make this data as static. You can see I have created a static data. Now I'm able to call these, and whatever the value I have been providing, that has been associated with it. Reading of a file and data consist is data. So you can see I have created two different functions. First is this function, second is this functions. So this is how I will creating some methods with the block itself only. So instead of void, let's say this is a void type of function that I am printing, and this is also void function. So you can see I have created two static method. One is this and second is this. So in the real time, the actual code of file reading in Excel, similarly actual reading file code of a setting of a data in Excel is being present in the real time perspective. So let's say uh, in the test runner, I wants to read the data and write the data from Excel. So same ideology we will going to call here itself only. So instead of creating a object on that Excel reading, we can directly provide the data. Also, these are the function. These are the function that we need to provide. Set data is a function name. Dot set data, and then let's say I will provide Ajay is educator at GFG. So this is the data I have provided the same. Similarly, we can get the data. So you can see without creating reference variable on those classes, I am directly calling, and you can see this is how it is appearing perfectly. So this is how the static method is being called in the real-time perspective. So we have seen two different examples, one with the utility and one with the Excel file reading. Similarly, I have shared one example for the take screenshot. You can see I have created one utility which names as class as screenshot utility. Inside that I have created one function which takes a screenshot, and there are two parameters such as driver and the file name. If I create the same utility and call those functions, automatically the snapshots on the web page is being captured and stored into this file name. So this is how we can use the static method on and on. Now moving on to the one thing more which is known as static block. So there is a difference between static block and the static method. So methods, we already know that these are the actions that we are pursuing with the same. So we need to call the functions, then only these can be activated. If I don't call the read data, that means this function is being not used. Means there is only one usage, which is a set data is being associated with it. You can see only this function is not being used, only this function is being used here. So you can see calling of those functions or the block, the whatever we have written inside the method is not happening. So the static block is a kind of a reverse ideology. So in the static block, if we need to initialize the value whenever we create a reference variable or any sort of actions with associated with it. So means we need to initialize with before initialization, that block will execute first. So where we are going to use in the real time perspective. So let's say I wanted to have a data. Let's say I will create a package with name as, or instead of package, let's create a file under the resources with the name of config.properties. Properties. So this is the file I have created against the same. Now I wanted to, let's say there is a data which we have associated with it. Let's say base URL. This is the first data that you need to do. Let's say instagram.com. This is the URL. This is the key, and this is the associated value. If I provide the key, then I will get the value. So I want to read this config.property file whenever I use this base URL. So this happening or this code will help you to accommodate, means we don't need to call again and again the reading of the config.file. Only I needs to do the base URL. Whenever I provide the base URL on the config.file, it will provide this output. So in the real-time perspective, reading a config file, setting some URLs, setting some web drivers, all those kind of a thing will be associated with the static block. So let's understand with one example like we have seen. See, I have created one config.property file under the resources folder. So let's create a one class which read this file, and if I call this class whenever I want and provide a key, automatically the loading of the property file has happened, and the value which is key will provide as an output. So this is the thing that we need to do. Same thing can be happen with the static block. As you can see, static block can be occur whenever I provide a configurator. Means let's go with the flow first, and this is the actual code which we are trying to do. So in this, let's say this is known as file handling in Java, where we are reading a file. So this is exception, so let's make it as try catch block. I will throw you the exception class by tomorrow. Then we will understand what is this try and what is this catch block and what is this all about. So just bear with it. So now we need to provide the file name. Which file I wants to read? I wants to read this config.property file. So copy path reference. This is the absolute path. Paste it here. You can see I have reached this config.property file and we are reading the file in the static block. This is what I am doing right now. You can see this is a property file. So we need to create a reference variable of properties class. Let's say this is the reference variable I have created. Property is equal to new properties. This is the reference variable I have created. Now properties is equal to load dot bracket input string. See, let me fix this. Properties dot load, and we need to do the input string. Try catch block. Instead of this, we can only catch single exception. We don't need to do multiple exception. So you can see by only these three lines, I have read this config.property file. I'm reading the file using file.input string, where we need to provide the file path. Then using a property class, since it's a property file, so the property class is being involved. We can load the input stream on that part. Now, if I call, if I want to fetch this key, and then it will return this output. So we need to create one function. Let's say I will creating a function which is a static method, public static, and it will return the string type, string get property, and we need to provide the key. Let's say this is the key that I want to provide. So return properties dot get property, and then we need to provide the key. See, this function is basically returning whatever the key I will providing, it will return this value. As you can see, I don't provide a file handling code again and again in get property. So I will make this block static. Whenever I call config reader dot get property and provide the key, automatically this static block will execute. Let's take an example here with more understanding. Let's say this is the execution where I am doing right now. You can see I haven't created any config reader. So right now there is no such display of the base URL is being occurred to us. So let's create a reference variable which is a config reader dot get property and provide the key. So the key is base URL. By using this line only, it will navigate to this function, means it will provide this value as a return, and before that it needs to be fetched from this. So static block will execute automatically. Let's print the value. Let's say I will be storing that into some string. Let's say URL is a string I have been storing. Base URL from file is. See, let's print the value and check if the files is being reading correctly or not. You can see the URL, whatever we have associated in the config.property file has been stored, has been viewed here as well. So this is the actual code, how we are using the static block in the real time perspective. Whenever we want to initiate the code or automatically before calling anything. So same kind of a thing that we are doing in the constructor, like we initiate the web driver on that login page, that page object model. Same thing was happening in the static block. Whenever I create or whenever I call a function associated with the class, automatically this block will execute. See, this is the main uses of the static block. I hope you are able to understand the topic. Let me know if you have any concerns, then I can check in the comment sections. Thank you. So these are the two topics we have covered so far. The third topic now comes here is the final keyword. These two topic are generally less used, which is final keyword and the super keywords. So, but we need to have an idea about it. So the final keywords, as the name suggests, it's a final means there will be by three approaches we can provide a final keywords. First for variables, second for methods, third for classes. When we are dealing with automation, generally uh, we are using variable as a constant for predefined things. For example, there are mathematical calculation and pi needs to be 3.14 f. For example, this is the float value that we need to do. Similarly, for weighting, we need to set as implicit weight as a by default as 10, and which cannot be changed. So these weights maximum time can also be added as the final keywords. So these are the real time uses. But in irrespective of methods and the classes, we generally don't do uh, the final keywords. The final keywords is being in the class. There is a class which is known as string is a final class which cannot be inherited. So there are three things by which we the final keywords which make a changes. When we are using the final keyword on the variables, that constant will remain same throughout the execution. Final methods prevent a base utility logic means simply it will inherit and we cannot override. We already know yesterday what is the overriding means the runtime polymorphism. So the same function from child class cannot be done. So whenever and similarly in the class, when we have a class as a parent class as a final, that means it cannot be inherited. Child class cannot be extend that parent class. So in the real time, we are not going to use majorly in on these two perspectives. So I will be skipping those. We are just focusing on the final variable thing. So the final variable thing, let's understand with the proper example. So let's create a class with the known as final test. As you can see, final test I have created. So let's create a variable. Let's say name as implicit, make it as int implicit weight is equal to 10. This is the maximum time I want to do. So if I make this as final, I cannot change this final keyword again. So let's use this. You can see s out implicit final test dot. I need to create a reference variable first. Let's say obj final test. Using obj, I can call this implicit weight. Let's say I will be printing that value. You can see 10 is being printed. Now I will be changing this implicit weight to 34. You can see this variable has been associated with final, so we cannot assign a value to a final variable once we already have defined the same. So if I needs to make a changes, then I need to remove the final, then only this is acceptable. Else you can see error is being thrown to the compiler side. This is the real time uses on the final keywords. So as we already know, I told you that these are the less things in the automation, so we are not majorly focused on that part. We just need to know what it is doing right now. Similarly, the next topic is known as super keyword. So the major keyword in the automation we are using is this keyword, but we should have an idea what is the super keyword denotes. So we have seen in yesterday's lecture about the encapsulations and browsers and the login page. All those value we already have kept associated with it, and we have created a constructor against it which accepted a WebDriver, and inside that we have this dot driver is equal to driver. So this is known as, so this driver is basically pointing to the current class. But if I make the change to super, it is denoting to the upper class, means the parent class. This is the main difference between a super and a this keyword. So let's understand with more example for more understanding about the super keyword. Let's say I have created a class with the name as base page class. This is a class I have created against the same. Let's delete the unnecessary class. You can see I have created one class which is known as base page class, and we are declaring a web driver against the same. Instead of web driver, let's mark it as string name. This is the variable I have been creating a same. So I have created one name, and let's say I have created one constructor which accept as a name. Okay, let's say instead of name, let's say it's str. Name is equal to str, means whenever I call a base page class and provide a str, means whatever the value, like we have seen the constructor yesterday, these value assigned to this name. So this is the program that we have achieved in this. Right now we have created one variable and one constructor against the same. And let's say I have created one more class with a name as login test. So same ideology, let's create the same. Now I have called this login test. If I call the super, what does it do? It will call the parent class. Right now you can see I haven't extended the login test. So if I call the super, the main class is always an object class, so that's why it navigating to the object class. Let's say this login test is now extending the base page class. So this is what I'm doing right now. You can see this is not preventing some error. Why it is? Because it's a base page constructor and we need to provide some string, then only it is acceptable. Let's say I will provide a value as a j. So you can see if I navigate to this, it will navigate to the parent class constructor. So this is a super is actually used in the real time perspective. If I want to call the parent class functions, then the super is associated with it. Same if I want to call the name, means super class reference variable, then we need a super dot, means